For a series all about puzzle solving, the Professor Layton series has a lot of secrets and hidden details that the average player may have missed. From Curious Village to Azran Legacy, and even beyond that in other Layton media, there's a lot to discover about the Layton legacy. And given that so many of you enjoyed the last video I did on the topic, I thought I'd share 25 more Professor Layton secrets, mysteries and hidden details that you just might not have known. To kick things off, let's travel back to 2009 Japan for what could be considered one of the most bizarre crossovers of all time. While the rest of the world wasn't even fortunate enough to experience Eternal Diva in cinemas, back in Japan, the marketing campaign was getting very serious. In fact, Level 5 had even collaborated with none other than McDonald's Japan to produce Eternal Diva and other Layton materials for the Mac to DS, a Japan-only service that allowed customers to bring their DS into the store and enjoy exclusive content. While a full game wasn't produced, customers could see exclusive behind-the-scenes material from Eternal Diva and try and solve 3 original puzzles from Spectre's Call, as well as try to solve the Layton Quiz, a short quiz of 15 questions that tested the player's knowledge of the Layton series. However, the series was discontinued in 2010, which sadly means the content has now been lost to time. While we're in Japan though, let's have a little chat about the merchandise situation, as very little Layton merchandise ever got released outside of the country. All sorts of plushies, notebooks and even pocket watches were produced to promote the series. But something you might not have expected was the production of Professor Layton bread. While I can't find out much more about that specifically, I do wonder who the intended target audience was here, slapping the Professor's face on a packet of rolls to promote a film. Okay then. Another piece of media that wasn't available to the West was the phone game Professor Layton and the 7 Phantom Thieves, a detective game where you gathered information on those around you to try and catch criminals. However, the game isn't the most interesting thing here, as if we take a look at the background boards that the game takes place on, we can see some exclusive artwork that wasn't available in the original games, such as Dropstone during Sunset, and a lot more of the Clockshop Tower from Lost Future. The fish minigame in Spectre's Call made you place bubbles around the screen in order to collect coins and complete the level. However, once again, it's the background here that's interesting. In Level 9, Spindly Spires, the background shows a Gothic tower that reminds you of London. This is actually a direct reference to this piece of Lost Future artwork that would appear on the top screen when talking to characters in present London. In the first 25 Facts video I made, I mentioned that Layton canonically wears white socks, and the only time we can see this is when he rips apart the globe in Flora's bedroom. However, in the prequel trilogy, we can see that Layton also canonically wears black socks, as seen when he's awoken in his office by Rosa before reading Clark's letter and taking off for Misthallery. Dropstone's Anderson Manor, the home of Cartier and Mr. Anderson, has a very weird visual glitch when viewed from the village pond. For some reason, one of the walls is missing and instead shows a grey and white PNG texture. However, what makes this even more odd is that this isn't even a PNG, but actually a JPEG, meaning that the grey and white squares would have had to have been baked into the image to have shown up here. How odd. In the original version of Miracle Mask, the Layton home in Stansbury was originally a much dingier Georgian-looking building. I imagine it was changed to make the scene a bit brighter and fit in with the rest of Stansbury, but also to make better use of the 3D feature by having a crickety house and views of the academy in the background. In Curious Village's Inn minigame, to increase Luke's happiness, one of the items you must place in his room is the world map. In Spectre's Call, the artist made a reference to this by having the same map on the wall of Luke's bedroom in Triton Manor. although it's not actually a British map with the UK and Europe in the centre, but a Japanese one with Australia and East Asia taking the centre spot instead. In the game files for Curious Village, Pandora's Box and Lost Future, sprites of Layton as an old man could be found, though for years fans were unsure as to what they were used for. However, it turns out that if you played the game for 99 hours and 59 minutes, Layton's regular walking sprite would be replaced with one of him walking with a white beard and bushy eyebrows. The Azran Legacy Artbook is another piece of Layton media that didn't get a release outside of Japan, though fortunately I was able to get a copy of it off eBay in 2020. The book goes through each location featured in the game and shows artwork and behind the scenes content. However, and this is where I get super tedious, on page 29, which discusses the artwork of Gressenheller and the characters found there, the illustrators foolishly used a picture of Dean Delmona with grey hair to represent him being found in that location, though true fans like myself would instantly recognise this image as the disguise used by Don Paolo in Lost Future. Nice one, level 5. To help with the testing process, the developers used a dummy character to test where a character would stand in the dialogue screen. While the original character was simply just green, an orange variant appeared in Lost Future 2. When the games then moved to 3D, the dummy was still used, though this time as a 3D model instead of a 2D sprite. However, it appears that only the green model was used in testing at this point. So, rest in peace, Orange Dude. You served us well. In Lost Future, after meeting with Layton and Luke at Scotland Yard to discuss the events at the Polydimensional Research Facility 10 years ago, Inspector Chelmy and Barton tailed the pair to the clock shop on Midland Road, where they were all transported to future London. However, it's quite clear to see they weren't prepared to make any arrests, as during the credits of the game, Barton can be seen arresting Dimitri, having to use a rope as the pair didn't bring any handcuffs. Between 2009 and 2011, Level 5 suffered from a major leak of concept art and behind-the-scenes content from Lost Future, Spectre's Call, Eternal Diva and Miracle Mask. Knowing that this artwork was not available anywhere else, it meant that it had to come from someone directly within the company, though it's never been clear as to who it came from exactly. The artwork gave us an exclusive look at unused characters, animation storyboards and close-ups of props that wouldn't usually be seen. However, I think we can all agree the most important find here was that in the original designs, Henry used to look like this. Definitely an improvement there, that's for sure. In Lost Future, it's never revealed what the full names of Spring and Cog are, although the HD re-release of the game does allow us to see the name of the shop, Tramzin. While this doesn't really add anything to the game, it's nice to see the artist actually added the Readable sign to the front of this shop, unlike most of the other businesses featured in the games. Bard Manor in Spectre's Call is one of the larger locations the player can explore, with many different rooms in both the main house and the tower. However, despite appearing in the cutscene set at the manor, the terrace balcony is inaccessible for the player to explore, though it appears that this wasn't always the case, as a draft version of the room can be found in the game files. While there isn't much to look at here, it is nice to see some behind the scenes content of a location that didn't quite make the cut. Layton's car, the Laytonmobile, has been confirmed to have been modelled on the Citroën 2CV, with a higher roof so that he can wear his hat while driving. However, in early draft versions of Curious Village, we can see the car was originally a dark green 1956 Volkswagen Beetle. Additionally, images from the inside of the car show the vehicle was originally a left-hand drive too, which is very rare for cars in the UK. In Layton's office, several Hanover models can be found on the shelf. Generally speaking, Hanover were small sculptures used for rituals in the Kofun period of Japan and were often buried with the dead as funerary objects. One of the models in Layton's office looks somewhat like the man himself, so to assume somebody bought it for him because it looks like him could be a reasonable conclusion to make. However, in one of the flashback scenes in Lost Future, we can see that Layton and Claire already owned this before Hershel even got his hat, meaning it's actually just a very strange coincidence. Chappie is the eccentric curator of the London Natural History Museum, who only responds with bizarre cat noises when asked any questions. However, he can also be found in the cutscene where Ariana realises her father has died. This is most likely an error due to bad communication between Level 5 and the animation studio. The studio, PA Works, probably requested Level 5 send them some NPC characters to place in the background of some of the cutscenes, and at some point Chappie's design was sent over. Whether he was originally meant for a London cutscene is still unclear. In Eternal Diva, the Elysium box can be seen on the counter in Dr. Schrader's apartment, though this shouldn't actually be possible as he claims he only got a hold of it recently in Pandora's box. Assuming that Eternal Diva takes place between 2 and 4 years before Pandora's box, Dr. Schrader shouldn't have this box in his apartment at this time. Once again, nice one, Level 5. In the London Museum seen in Spectre's Call and Azran Legacy, Ewan states the dinosaur exhibits were largely donated by Dr. Schrader and Clark Triton, though in real London, the Natural History Museum and Museum of London both hold a large collection of archaeological items belonging to the Layton collection. Thomas Layton was a collector of books, prints, maps and archaeological artefacts, and much of his collection ended up in various UK museums. Perhaps our titular professor got his name from somebody after all. Scotland Yard is a location that makes several appearances in the Layton series, though instead of focusing on the building itself here, we'll be looking at the surrounding area. In Spectre's Call and Azran Legacy, we can see that Scotland Yard is on the corner of 2 streets, though by the time of Lost Future one of these streets has been completely demolished and built upon, now providing a car park and garages for the police. On the topic of Scotland Yard though, it's revealed in Professor Layton and the Phantom Deity, a Japan-only novel starring Layton and Luke, that Inspector Gorski is much better at dealing with crimes that challenge him athletically rather than intellectually. Whenever it comes to solving crimes committed by intelligent criminals, Gorski has to ask Layton for help, but does it secretly, not wanting other officers to know. When Layton solves the mystery of the silenced bell at the start of Eternal Diva, he and Luke step out onto a balcony and the camera zooms out to reveal where in London they are, right at the top of the Houses of Parliament clock tower. As the camera zooms out though, we can see a series of buildings on the right hand side of the shot, being the original St Thomas's Hospital, designed by Henry Currie. While a lot of the hospital was damaged in the Second World War, all of it appears still standing by Layton's time. Given that the artists could have put anything in this space, it's nice to see they actually researched what buildings were here before the modern St Thomas's Hospital was built in the post-war years. Throughout the series, the developers have been pretty vague in describing what each of the game locations are, though a map from Pandora's box shows the locations of both Gressenheller and Dr. Schrader's apartment, being in Westminster. While Gressenheller was later shown in the series to be a little less urban, in Pandora's box its location is somewhere around Earlham Street, with Dr. Schrader's flat being opposite the Department for International Trade on Whitehall Place. And finally, while it's clear that Layton's model is very different between Miracle Mask and versus Ace Attorney, it may interest you to know that Layton's model changed quite a bit just between Miracle Mask and Azran Legacy, not just in polygons, but in the colour of his suit as well. In Miracle Mask, Layton's suit has more of a green tinge to it, whereas in Azran Legacy it's much closer to the brown seen in the original trilogy in Spectre's Call. And just like that, we've reached the end of another 25 facts. Just like last time, if you've got any more interesting tidbits of information about the series that you also think the fandom might not know, leave them in the comments below. Even still, I'm sure there's loads of little details hiding away just waiting for fans to discover. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to slap the thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe for more obscure Professor Layton content that you won't find anywhere else. Cheers gang, see you next time.